Greetings, folks. Um, I want to start by apologizing to anyone who hasn't heard from me in a while. I don't even remember how long ago I stopped checking messages, but I have been sick all fucking month. Um, the past few days, I'm better than I have been in a while, but yeah, after a rough winter, a month of being ill, and still, I'm just completely ridiculously exhausted. I have extreme fucking fatigue. That hasn't lifted at all. Most of the other symptoms are almost gone. But anyway, I have had to just focus on getting through the moment and detaching and emptying out. So I haven't checked messages or gotten back to anyone in quite a while. I'm hoping this fucking full moon breaks this fucking illness and I'm back to normal very soon. So I don't know. I might be responding to messages again soon, or I may not. I'm not in any position to predict myself at the moment. But I hope everyone else is doing well. Lunatic Love, Lightheart. Good to see you here. Hey, Nolan. Nolan says, hope things keep improving. Any idea what it is? My COVID test came back negative, but I'm pretty certain that's a false negative. My symptoms followed COVID symptoms. Um, like the more, not the mild symptom progress, but it followed the progress of heavier symptoms. I had about a week where everything inside my fucking chest all swelled up. Got to where I could only breathe halfway in. Very sore. Anyway, I don't want to talk about symptoms, but I think it's COVID. And there's a chain that makes sense of how I would have gotten it. But yeah, I don't really want to talk about being fucking ill. So I'm going to read part of This Is Water by David Foster Wallace. Not the whole thing. I'm just going to skip over the opening. Anyway, partway through. The point here is that I think this is one part of what teaching me how to think is really supposed to mean. To be just a little less arrogant, to have just a little critical awareness about myself and my certainties. Because a huge percentage of the stuff that I tend to be automatically certain of is, it turns out, totally wrong and deluded. I've learned this the hard way. Here's just one example of the total wrongness of something I tend to be automatically sure of. Everything in my own immediate experience supports my deep belief that I am the absolute center of the universe, the realest, most vivid and important person in existence. We rarely think about this sort of natural, basic self-centeredness because it's so socially repulsive. But it's pretty much the same for all of us. It is our default setting, hardwired into our boards at birth. Think about it. There's no experience you have had that you are not the absolute center of. The world as you experience it is there in front of you or behind you, to the left or right of you, on your TV or your monitor, and so on. Other people's thoughts and feelings have to be communicated to you somehow, but your own are so immediate, urgent, real. Please don't worry that I'm getting ready to lecture you about compassion or other directedness or all the so-called virtues. This is not a matter of virtue. It is a matter of my choosing to do the work of somehow altering or getting free of my natural, hardwired default setting, which is to be deeply and literally self-centered and to see and interpret everything through this lens of self. People who can adjust their natural default setting this way are often described as being well adjusted, which I suggest to you is not an accidental term. Given the triumphant academic setting here, an obvious question is how much of this work of adjusting our default setting involves actual knowledge or intellect. This question gets very tricky. Probably the most dangerous thing about an academic education, at least in my own case, is it enables my tendency to over intellectualize stuff, to get lost in abstract argument made inside my head, instead of simply paying attention to what's going on right in front of me, paying attention to what is going on inside me. So I'm sure you guys know by now, it is extremely difficult to stay alert and attentive instead of getting hypnotized by the constant monologue inside your own head, maybe happening right now. 20 years after my own graduation, I have come gradually to understand that the liberal arts cliche about teaching you how to think is actually shorthand for a much deeper, more serious idea. Learning how to think really means learning how to exercise some control over how and what you think. It means being conscious and aware enough to choose what you pay attention to and to choose how you construct meaning from experience. Because if you cannot exercise this kind of choice in adult life, you will be totally hosed. Think of the old cliche about the mind being an excellent servant, but a terrible master. This, like many cliches, so lame and unexciting on the surface, actually expresses a great and terrible truth. It is not the least bit coincidental that adults who commit suicide with firearms always shoot themselves in the head. They shoot the terrible master. And the truth is that most of these suicides are actually dead long before they pull the trigger. And I suppose that this is what the real, no bullshit value of your liberal arts education is supposed to be about. How to keep from going through your comfortable, prosperous, respectable adult life dead, unconscious, a slave to your head and to your natural default setting of being uniquely, completely, imperially alone day in and day out. That may sound like hyperbole or abstract nonsense. Let's get concrete. The plain fact is that you graduating seniors do not yet have any clue what day in, day out really means. There happens to be whole large parts of adult American life that nobody talks about in commencement speeches. One such part involves boredom, routine, and petty frustration. The parents and older folks here will know all too well what I'm talking about. By way of example, let's say it's an average adult day and you get up in the morning, go to your challenging white collar college graduate job, and you work hard for 8 or 10 hours. And at the end of the day, you're tired and somewhat stressed. And all you want is to go home and have a good supper and maybe unwind for an hour. Then hit the sack early because, of course, you have to get up the next day and do it all again. But then you remember there's no food at home. You haven't had time to shop this week because of your challenging job. So now after work, you have to get in your car and drive to the supermarket. It's the end of the work day and traffic is apt to be very bad. So getting to the store takes way longer than it should. When you finally get there, the supermarket's very crowded because, of course, it's the time of day when all the other people with jobs also try to squeeze in some grocery shopping. And the store is hideously lit and infused with soul-killing muzak or corporate pop. That's pretty much the last place you want to be. You can't just get in and quickly out. You have to wander all over the huge, overlit stores, confusing aisles to find the stuff you want. You have to maneuver your junky cart through all these other tired, hurried people with carts. Eventually, you get all your supper supplies, except now it turns out that there aren't enough checkout lanes open, even though it's the end of the day rush. So the checkout line is incredibly long, which is stupid and infuriating. You can't take your frustration out on the frantic lady working the register, who's overworked at a job whose daily tedium and meaninglessness surpasses the imagination of any of us here at a prestigious college. But anyway, you finally get to the checkout line's front, you pay for your food, and you get told to have a nice day in a voice that is the absolute voice of death. Then you have to take your creepy, flimsy plastic bags of groceries in your cart with the one crazy wheel that pulls maddeningly to the left, all the way through the crowded, bumpy, littery parking lot. Then you have to drive all the way home through slow, heavy SUV intensive rush hour traffic, etc., etc. Everyone here has done this, of course, but it hasn't yet been part of your graduate's actual life routine, day after week, after month, after year. But it will be. Many more dreary, annoying, seemingly meaningless routines beside. But that is not the point. The point is that petty, frustrating crap like this is exactly where the work of choosing is going to come in. Because the traffic jams and crowded aisles and long checkout lines give me time to think. And if I don't make a conscious decision about how to think and what to pay attention to, I'm going to be pissed and miserable every time I have to shop. Because my natural default setting is the certainty that situations like this are really all about me, about my hungriness, my fatigue, and my desire to just get home. It's going to seem for all the world like everyone else is just in my way. And who are all these people in my way? Look at how repulsive most of them are, and how stupid and cow-like and dead-eyed and non-human they seem in the checkout line, or how annoying and rude it is that people are talking loudly on cell phones in the middle of the line. And look at how deeply and personally unfair this is. Or, of course, if I'm in a more socially conscious liberal arts form of default setting, I can spend the time in the end of the day traffic being disgusted about all the huge, stupid lane blocking SUVs and Hummers and V12 pickup trucks, burning their wasteful, selfish 40-gallon tanks of gas. And I can dwell on the fact that the patriotic or religious bumper stickers always seem to be on the biggest, most disgustingly selfish vehicles, driven by the ugliest, most inconsiderate and aggressive drivers. And I can think about how our children's children will despise us for wasting all the future's fuel and probably screwing up the climate, and how spoiled and stupid and selfish and disgusting we all are, and how our modern consumer society just sucks, and so far forth, and so on. You get the idea. If I choose to think this way in a store and on the freeway, fine. Lots of us do. Except thinking this way tends to be so easy and automatic that it doesn't have to be a choice. It is my natural default setting. It is the automatic way that I experience the boring, frustrating, crowded parts of adult life when I'm operating on the automatic, unconscious belief that I'm the center of the world and that my immediate needs and feelings are what should determine the world's priorities. The thing is, of course, there are totally different ways to think about these kinds of situations. In this traffic, all the vehicles stopped and idling in my way. It's not impossible that some of these people in SUVs have been in horrible auto accidents in the past and now find driving so terrifying that their therapist has all but ordered them to get huge, heavy SUVs so they can feel safe enough to drive. Or that the Hummer that just cut me off is maybe being driven by a father whose little child is hurt or sick in the seat next to him. And he's trying to get this kid to the hospital, and he's in a bigger, more legitimate hurry than I am. It's actually I who am in his way. Or I can choose to force myself to consider the likelihood that everyone else in the supermarket checkout line is just as bored and frustrated as I am, that some of these people probably have harder, more tedious and painful lives than I do. Again, please don't think that I'm giving you moral advice, or that I'm saying you're supposed to think this way, or that anyone expects you to just automatically do it, because it's hard. It takes will and effort, and if you're like me, some days you won't be able to do it, or you just flat out won't want to. But most days, if you're aware enough to give yourself a choice, you can choose to look differently at this fat, dead-eyed, over-made-up lady who just screamed at her kid in the checkout line. Maybe she's not usually like this. Maybe she's been up 3 straight nights holding the hand of a husband who's dying of bone cancer. Or maybe this very lady is the low-wage clerk at the motor vehicle department who just yesterday helped your spouse resolve a horrific, infuriating red tape problem through some small act of bureaucratic kindness. Of course, none of this is likely, but it's also not impossible. It just depends what you want to consider. If you're automatically sure that you know what reality is, and you are operating on your default setting, then you, like me, probably won't consider possibilities that aren't annoying and miserable. But if you really learn how to pay attention, then you will know there are other options. It will actually be within your power to experience a crowded, hot, slow, consumer hell type situation as not only meaningful but sacred, on fire with the same force that made the stars, love, fellowship, the mystical oneness of all things deep down. Not that that mystical stuff is necessarily true. The only thing that's capital T true is that you get to decide how you're going to try to see it. This, I submit, is the freedom of a real education, of learning how to be well adjusted. You get to consciously decide what has meaning and what doesn't. You get to decide what to worship. Because here's something else that's weird but true. In the day-to-day trenches of adult life, there is actually no such thing as atheism. There's no such thing as not worshiping. Everybody worships. The only choice we get is what to worship. And the compelling reason for maybe choosing some sort of God or spiritual type thing to worship, be it Jesus Christ or Allah, be it Yahweh or the wicked mother goddess or the Four Noble Truths or some inviolable set of ethical principles, is that pretty much anything else you worship will eat you alive. If you worship money and things, they are where you tap real meaning in life, then you will never have enough. Never feel you have enough. It's the truth. Worship your body and beauty and sexual allure, and you will always feel ugly. When time and age start showing, you will die a million deaths before they finally grieve you. On one level, we all know this stuff already. It's been codified as myths, proverbs, cliches, epigrams, parables, the skeleton of every great story. The whole trick is keeping the truth up front in daily consciousness. Worship power, you will end up feeling weak and afraid. You will ever need more power over others to numb you to your own fear. Worship your intellect, being seen as smart, you will end up feeling stupid, a fraud, always on the verge of being found out. But the insidious thing about these forms of worship is not that they're evil or sinful, it's that they're unconscious. They are the default settings. They're the kinds of worship you just gradually slip into day after day, getting more and more selective about what you see and how you measure value without ever being fully aware that that's what you're doing. And the so-called real world will not discourage you from operating on your default settings, because the so-called real world of men and money and power hums merrily along in a pool of fear and anger and frustration and craving and worship of self. Our own present culture has harnessed these forces in ways that have yielded extraordinary wealth and comfort and personal freedom. The freedom all to be lords of our tiny skull-sized kingdoms, alone at the center of creation. This kind of freedom has much to recommend it. But of course, there are all different kinds of freedom. And the kind that is most precious, you will not hear much talk about in the great outside world of wanting and achieving. The really important kind of freedom involves paying attention and awareness and discipline, being able truly to care about other people and to sacrifice for them over and over in myriad, petty, unsexy ways every day. That is real freedom. That is being educated and understanding how to think. The alternative is unconsciousness, the default setting, the rat race, the constant gnawing sense of having had and lost some infinite thing. I know that this stuff probably doesn't sound fun and breezy or grandly inspirational, the way a commencement speech is supposed to sound. What it is, as far as I can see, is the capital T truth, with a whole lot of rhetorical niceties stripped away. You are, of course, free to think of it whatever you wish, but please don't just dismiss it as some finger wagging Dr. Laura sermon. None of this stuff is really about morality or religion or dogma or big fancy questions of life after death. The capital T truth is about life before death. It's about the real value of an education, which has almost nothing to do with knowledge and everything to do with the simple awareness of what is so real and essential, so hidden in plain sight all around us all the time, that we have to keep reminding ourselves over and over, this is water, this is water. It is unimaginably hard to do this, to stay conscious and alive in the adult world day in and day out, which means yet another grand cliche turns out to be true. Your education really is the job of a lifetime, and it commences now. I wish you way more than luck. All right, I'm back. Let's see if anyone has anything to talk about in chat. Hey, Dan, love you too, brother. Alucard, all moral philosophies are a religion. Fair enough. Haley, nice to have you here tonight. How you doing? Iron Dogger says, great commencement speech. Alucard says, I would love to get to know you better. All right, cool. Why? And for anyone, I started this by apologizing. I have not checked messages in I don't know how long. I've shut down quite a bit this past month, being very ill. But whenever I am checking messages again, which, yeah, could be very soon, even though I'm still brutally fucking exhausted. Other than that, my symptoms have been really mild for a couple days. I could be finally at a turning point to get better. But anyway, there's a link to our Discord in the description. If you join our Discord, and it's just my name, Mercury Black, you can direct message me there. Once I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how to predict what the fuck I'm going to do in the future or how long it will take. But I'm sure at some point I'll start doing private sessions again or be more active on the channel. I don't fucking know. The way I've gotten through the past month has been, I don't know, I suppose sort of Taoist. I have been trying to empty out, do shadow work, let go, trying to just accept the present moment, let go of the past and future. Emptying out so the next time I fucking crack, there's less to spill. What the fuck? Oh, but yeah, anyway, if you want to reach out to me directly, you can send me a message on our Discord, is the point of that. Hey, Pat. So I read part of the transcript from a commencement speech David Foster Wallace gave. Yeah, see, Haley knew what it was. And Pat says, love you, Grizz. You hear, Grizz? I don't see a message from you. Oh, I do see one further down. You're here. And Haley asked, did you end up having COVID? The test came back negative, but I'm sure that's what the fuck it was. When I went in for the test, the exact symptoms that they said if when you have the worst symptoms, you're sick for a week and then you start feeling better and then you get even sicker. Like they told me, regardless of whether I've heard back from the test or not, if I get, these symptoms, difficulty breathing, a band of pain around the chest and whatnot, they gave me this list of symptoms and said, if you get that, come to the hospital right away. My second week of being sick was exactly that. It's like, and it's been different every week. There's been like 4 phases of whatever the fuck I have that have matched up with COVID. So, and there's a chain of how I could have gotten COVID. So I think that's what I'm recovering from. The majority of the month, I had a fever and just brutal variety of symptoms. But the past couple days, if it wasn't for the extreme exhaustion, like what's come along with this for me is exhaustion, just fucking brutal. A few of the nicer days, I've gone outside for a couple hours and thrown out some bird seed and hung out with wildlife. That feels like such a fucking chore. It's like for most of this month, I can't be up for more than an hour or two, and then I need to either lay down and meditate or straight up sleep. I've been sleeping and just fucking either sitting there or lying down. But yeah, just sitting outside is exhausting. And that hasn't let up at all. All right. A lot of this is people talking to each other. So, Pat, you've been shut down too? What's going on with you? Just says your energy's been low. Have you been sick or just low energy? I'm very familiar with depression fatigue. This has been worse than that, or it's a fucking combination. I got sick on the 22nd last month, was when it just fucking set in all at once, really extreme. My winter depression was just beginning to lessen. And I was just getting hopeful of like feeling not too bad for April. Like I was starting to hope to have some non-suffering time. And then this set in, which in my mindfulness, I'm aware I found very traumatic. I am so tired of pain and suffering coming in from so many fucking. No one wants to hear about that. Spring me yet? No, Grizz. Not even fucking close. Or it's like I fucking woke up just brutally sick this year. Like in a lot of ways, I see each year for me is very much like a day, with the winter solstice being around midnight, the spring solstice being early morning. You know, that's this year feels to me the way a day would feel if you woke up and were violently sick for the first 2 hours. which has delayed any fucking rebirth of a spring me. Grizz says late bloom here too, but I think there's ground being broken. Wild variants of the mutagen is greater than the name brand. I don't know what that meant. But maybe that's perfectly clear. Because I am far from thinking optimally. My brain is moving very fucking slowly. All right, so Lightheart is making a comment here related to what I read. So Lightheart says, I ponder if our default setting is simply relationship with the transcendent, or telos. That's the other default setting. I think this. Oh, fuck. How do I even talk about this? Because, yeah, this falls into the truth, one thing being true and the opposite of it being true. So, yes, there are two opposite defaults we can fall into. I think Foster's point, why'd I call him by his middle name? Anyway, I think his point is excellent, though. The day-to-day grind and involvement with the real world. The non-mindful default setting is what Wallace was talking about. You can find that other default, but that comes from mindfulness. I know, I guess some people experience the world in such a way that they can find the default you're talking about. But for me, that's more the default. It's the default I found when I went into isolation and spent a couple years alone. It's easier to find that default for me alone and with nature, which has been pretty much the only pleasant thing the past month. Is that at least it was nice enough that I could go outside and hang out with some animals. Although being sick, I would wash my hands before spreading out the seed and was not hand feeding anything. Haley says you sound strong. Isn't it strange how different we can sound from how we feel? I do not feel strong at all. Like my mindful observation of myself is that I am feeling somewhat traumatized from life the past couple years. Things that fall into the outside of your ability to control have walloped me over and over again with different kinds of psychological, emotional, and physical pain. And so I have been trying to be present with and heal that, but I don't feel strong at all. What about you, Haley? How are you feeling lately? Have you been painting? Okay, and Pat's dropping energy. He says, I think it comes from a mix of depression, my dog dying, and the world being on fire. That'll fucking do it. Sorry to hear you've been having such a hard time. But yeah, like you said, freedom is the way we choose to see it. Condolences on the dog. Yeah, parts of the world are on fire, but parts are flooded. There's plenty of heaven and hell out there for everyone to find. Lightheart says, a friend dying of cancer shames me with his faith and positive outlook. He's living each day to the fullest. He's mindful in the present. My prayer for you is peace, brother. Yeah, telos equals purpose. Well, thank you. I will take all the prayers anyone wants to give me. All right, I'm caught up in chat. I have nothing else to say without being prompted. Let's see. Nolan says, Merc, I sent you a poem a few days ago. It has an awakening from death vibe. Might resonate with you. Okay, cool. Yeah, sorry, I have not checked messages in a while, so I haven't seen that yet, but I'm looking forward to reading it. I'm going to take a quick break to go to the little lunatics room. Yeah, and I have nothing else planned to say. So if people have questions or comments or whatever, put them in chat. I'll get back to it when I'm back. Hi, Bravery. All right, Haley says pain is a language. You experience it deeply. You're able to speak to the entire world. You can hold space for others in a sacred way. Yeah. Spent a lot of time this month like emptying myself of everything that I can get rid of. But you know the way things work, it grows back. And anyway, I've been trying to let go of as many opinions as I could, even. Not necessarily getting rid of them forever, but just letting go of them for now. To try to have, yeah, I've been spending a significant amount of time trying to think as little as possible or trying not to be attached to thoughts, preferences, opinions. That is definitely something I believe when I'm into believing things. I'm not explaining this well at all. But spending a couple weeks trying to empty yourself of everything and then being present and attentive to what does show up. Especially if you're in enough fucking pain, it's really easy. to get caught up in some negative default setting. So I've been trying to just be present with what's there and let things go. And if you're allows for a lot of shadow work and seeing what comes up. What was the point I was going to make? Oh, right. Okay. So talking about how speaking to the world about experiencing. But anyway, the channel and a lot of you have come to mind to me often. But I've taken a break from trying to understand what's going on here, what I'm doing or why. But yeah, maybe that's one of the things I do. Pat wrote pain equals life. I fucking guess I want more of it. Is it getting any better, Pat? Or is it still at the worst of it? Haley says I've been painting tigers fighting dragons. Cool. Where do you have new stuff up? Because I've actually looked through a bunch of your paintings like more than once. I love your artwork. The only place I was looking at it was I think it's just HaleyBruno.com. You have anything new posted there? Or is there somewhere else that people can see your art? Yeah, I've gone through a bunch of your paintings a few times. I'm very, very fucking powerful. Pat says, nice to be quiet. Okay, good. That takes the pressure off talking. Lightheart says, it's been my default too, bro. But I'm awakening to a new reality, even as the darkness claws at me to drag me back down, and now my focus is on the transcendent. Well said. Okay, and Haley gave that her Instagram is Cinder Ash. I've never used Instagram before. That's something I have to fucking sign up for to see your art. But anyway, I highly recommend it that anyone who does use Instagram to check out cinder.ash. Lightheart says shed humanity and lean into the divine for one's sanity. Yeah, I've been leaning that direction. And I've been very fucking disconnected from humanity lately. I don't have anything to say at the moment, and I don't feel like forcing it, so I'm going to wait and see what happens. If you want to prompt something, feel free. I'll respond to what arises there. Or you can take a chance of seeing if just silence will put anything into my mind. But right now, it's quiet. And Haley says, "You're reaching out to us now." That reads as an interest in connecting with humanity. We are humanity. Yeah, I love humanity. I prefer to encounter it as individuals than society. And yes, even though I've been particularly disconnected this month because I wasn't feeling well, I have still loved all of you all this month. I have just been so fucking exhausted. Pat says, "I feel like this depression or funk I'm in is necessary rest." Fuck yeah, that's one thing I noticed this month as I thought over the past couple months. My fucking angels and upper management were telling me I needed rest and healing. Before I got sick, like I wasn't pushing myself too fucking hard, but I did a few more live streams and I did a few private sessions and I was trying to keep up with messages, although I was getting behind now and then. It was like I felt in meditation like God kept telling me to relax and that I could do a bit, but not to overdo it. And looking back on it, I always just I put as much pressure on myself as I felt like I could handle, and that would still count as not pushing too hard. But I was really just pushing it right up to the line of how much can I do shit for the channel or be there for people. And so I don't know how much of me getting sick. I mean, everything has myriad reasons. Everything's so fucking interconnected and nothing means just one thing. But the timing of me getting sick this month and how much it knocked me the fuck out. Because, like, even in that state, at the beginning of being fucking sick, I was trying to do shit. Yeah, I'm not. Which is why, for however long that it's been, that I've completely fucking shut down and not even checked messages, was because I finally realized that I have to fucking rest and heal. And that took a while, even with being sick, to give into. But this is the best I have felt since being sick, like at this time of night. Because it's often worse at night. It's like not as bad early in the day. Various symptoms. This is, other than exhaustion, which even that may not be quite as bad as it's been. And this shit has gone where sort of it's like a week at a time. Maybe this is finally the end of it. Haley says God didn't lead you this far to abandon you. Yeah, no, I don't worry about God abandoning me, but he takes people some pretty rough fucking places. I'm kind of traumatized by that. But fuck, whatever happens, happens. Hey, Zen Muppet. Good morning. Where are you that you're just waking up? In Europe? How you doing? Lightheart says, I came to this recently. The complete hell I've been through may have been for a purpose. Empathy. Yes. When I'm asking why, because lately I've spent a lot of time not doing this, but the majority of the time, like I've said so often, I do the whole. It's not even necessarily just about what you're saying in your head, but be mindful definitely of what you're saying in your head. If you find yourself asking, why is this happening to me? I, like with what Wallace said about choosing your focus and all that shit, seems to me like a deep magical practice to force yourself to always ask and change 2 to 4. But I've also it's not like it's just when your mind's thinking those words. There are emotions you have that you'll realize the emotional state that you're in is like you're charged up with the question, why the fuck is this happening to me? I don't even just try to control it at the intellectual level. It's like when I notice that emotion is in me before, and now I can sometimes get it before the thoughts even started. But why is this happening to me? My typical thing is to change that. Oh, good night, Haley. Thanks for stopping by. God bless. Lots of love. Yeah, my default is to change the way of thinking of it to why is it happening for me? And then one of the answers often when I'm going through difficulty that when I switch it to why is it happening for me, um, comes that I can learn empathy from paying attention to my suffering. Um, Although lately that has not been what I'm doing. If I notice that I'm thinking, why is this happening for me? And I'm correcting that from the 2. Instead, I ask myself, why are you asking why? Stop asking, putting fucking stories on anything, and just trying to go to a blank, clear awareness of those things without even questioning them or altering them, just letting them dissolve. So I've spent much more time in that frame over the past 2 weeks. Okay, so Zen Muppets in the middle of Germany, drifting through void, hoping to grasp something solid to hold, a mountain to climb. Yeah, I was that way a while ago. But again, went to the whole why are you hoping for something solid to hold if you don't have something solid to hold? If something solid to hold arises later, I'll experience that. But for now, I just have to experience this, and later I'll experience later. I am at the moment taking a much more passive approach. And I don't know if that will continue once I'm better or not. Once I feel better and spring kicks in, I may change to a more active mode, or I may stay more responsive and empty for a while. I have no fucking idea because I'm not planning later. Pat says I've been super emotional, especially right before and since the last full moon. Yeah, full moons can build up a lot of energy. But this full moon's in Scorpio. That's why there was a scorpion in the thumbnail. And that's death. So this is a time for ending a new beginning. Maybe you and I, Pat, will go into a different phase after this moon. Pat says, yeah, the stories are an attachment to ego. Yeah, and not that there isn't time to be active with your ego and to be involved in the world. And there's a time for stories, but for me at least, there's times to let go of them. And I'm in an overall, I mean, you can't let go of everything, but I'm letting go of as much as I can at the moment and just trying to rest and heal right now and stay in the moment and fucking we'll see what happens. Zen Muppet says responsibility as the ability to respond without expectations and forcing oneself out there. There's peace in it and lack of identity, though. Yeah, that's more in line with the way I've been dealing with life the past couple weeks. And we've almost made it to an hour. Well, good for me, I guess. I did not think I would make it to an hour tonight. Anyone else have anything else to say? Pat says, I feel like there is just time. And what we decide to do in it. Or there's just time in what happens in it. How much do we really decide what we do in it? Most people like to feel like they decide everything, though, right? Like Peterson says to Sam Harris. I just don't experience all the decisions everyone else does when I look deeply. I totally understand Sam Harris on that. Then Muppet says plenty, but that's my fear of silence, facing others. I find silence comfortable. Hey, Nicholas. How you doing tonight? And Nicholas says time is partly an ingredient. And on that note, it's 1 a.m. So I fulfilled the full hour obligation for the full moon. Glad you're good. And sorry to wrap up as soon as you showed up. It has nothing to do with that. I'm just exhausted. But I'll stick around for a minute if you have anything you want to say to everyone. If anyone has any last thing they want to talk about, I can stick around a bit. If I don't get prompted with questions or anything that people want to share, I'll wrap this up. Nicholas says, no problem. I'm a long-time lurker. Well, thanks for saying hi tonight. Instead, although everyone's always welcome to lurk silently, but it's nice that you said hi. All right, looks like nothing new's coming in. So I'm going to wrap this up, and I have no idea what happens next. I may start responding to messages again tomorrow, or it might be a while. And I have no idea when I'll do anything else on the channel. Like if I will before the next full moon. Well, we'll find out. So I hope tonight's full moon, it's a turning point in a better direction for everyone. God bless. Lunatic love to all.